It's my privilege and pleasure to be with you today. It's Thursday, the 8th of September. It's actually the feast of the birthday of Mary. There's only 3 birthdays that we celebrate in the liturgy of the church. Jesus himself, of course, at Christmas, and then Mary, the mother of Jesus, because she's so important to the whole history of salvation. And then John the Baptist. Jesus said about him that no man was ever born greater than John the Baptist. And so we have those 3 birthdays, but today happens to be the birthday of Mary, the mother of Jesus. I'm sure you're seeing in the news today, news about one of our priests in the diocese was accused of rape down in Benton County, and it's a sad thing, but it kind of shows again how the humanity that priests are human beings too. We're not perfect either. We make mistakes. Pray for your priests, all of them, particularly the priests of our own diocese, that they might be faithful to their promises and vows, and also be empowered and encouraged by others to live holy priest lives or priestly lives. Last week, we had our Years of Caritas, as I mentioned before. It's a support group of priests. There's 7 of us that meet every couple of months overnight, and it's really the support group is to help priests, but all the priests aren't in those support groups, and we all need your prayers to be faithful to who we are. This next week, there's a notice in the bulletin, but there's also the week after that, there's a kind of a letter about it, and I'll speak at the masses. And then the 25th, we have the increased offertory effort that we're putting on. You know, you remember I mentioned last week I should say, that we've had that increased offertory drive or effort back in 2019, just a few months before the COVID hit us, and it really enabled us, because people were so generous in response to it, to withstand the COVID years and many, many months that we were prevented or forbidden really to gather for Mass, and then we just on a limited basis. And now we know there's many of you who haven't come back yet to active participation, and we extended an invitation to come on and join us. But that effort is kind of building on the first effort that we had back in 2019. It was responding to the call of Christ for love and service. We're kind of building on that, and we're doing this again as a follow-up for that. It's renewing our response to God's call for love and service. And we encourage, as we are a tithing parish ourselves, giving 5% of our weekly income to needs external to ourselves. We encourage. That's a wonderful way of kind of setting priorities straight. Just last week it was that God, we read in the scriptures, he insists on being in first place. So his work has to be in first place too. And I'm not saying everybody has to give 5% of their income, but as a matter of fact, if everyone gave 1% of their income, just 1%, to the church and for the work of Christ, the work of the Lord in the world, we'd be in great shape financially. We never have to ask you for another penny. But the fact is, inflation is here, and we're all suffering because of it. And I know you find it difficult to pay your bills, your utility bills, and gas bills, and food bills. It's very difficult. It's the same way for us too. We have as you saw, as you will see too, in the financial report that's given, we have a pretty healthy remaining fund at the end of the fiscal year, but we also anticipate much more expense during this coming year, and so we ask you just to think about it carefully. What's your response to that? On the 25th of September, we'll have an opportunity to become part of the pledging family of our parish, if you haven't done so already. If you're doing all that you can, we appreciate that. We're not asking for any more, but there's many of you who are not, and you're the ones who we're looking at and saying, if you could increase it a little bit, it would be greatly appreciated. Our parish has always been most generous in responding to the fiscal needs of this community, and I thank you in advance for doing the same thing continually. So we're in that process right now. This Sunday, of course, is 9/11. It's the 21st anniversary of that horrendous event that took place in Pennsylvania and in the Pentagon, and also at the World Trade Center in New York 21 years ago this coming Sunday. I was in Gallup, New Mexico at a Cathedral Ministries conference, the Western United States, and we were down in Gallup, and I remember watching that on TV. I was just getting ready to go out running in the morning, and turned on the TV, and there it was. The whole thing portrayed. I also watched the second plane hit the World Trade Center, and I had been in the World Trade Center just about a year before, and up on the roof, and I was familiar with that whole area. But I remember driving back to be back here with you for masses of remembrance and remembering all those who died. And I drove, it was 1,402 miles, I think. I had a rented car, and they had made arrangements the day before, when it happened rather, that if you wanted to leave your car any place except where you rented it, the rental companies wouldn't charge you. It took me several hours to get through to the rental company. I had to let them know what's going on, but we were able to do that and drive back to in 1,402 miles. I remember that. I drove up to as far as Salt Lake City with one of the other priests who was there from that cathedral, and then drove the rest of the way myself, not knowing where I was going really, having never been, didn't have any maps, couldn't get them. There were no trains, no buses, no planes, there was nothing. You had to just kind of be on your own. And I remember listening to that all the way up here from Gallup, New Mexico for that meeting. A day we remember, and we pray for peace even more now than ever, conscious of that terrible day 21 years ago. Our Life Team begins, well, first of all, Spy Edge begins its new season next Thursday at 7 o'clock in the school cafeteria, the old school cafeteria under the gym. And all middle school students are invited to come. You don't have to be Catholic to come. You bring your friends. If you have somebody who want to come, it'll be a great kickoff. There's always a pizza party, and Sean has a great concept of preparing to have a big send-off. It'll be games and be a great night. So anybody in middle school, bring your friends and come on and join us. That's on Thursday night, next Thursday, on the 15th of September, 7 o'clock in the cafeteria, school cafeteria. Life Team begins a new season on the 18th, the following Sunday, following Life Team Mass. As part of our celebration is coming and participating in Mass, and then going from there over to it'll be the school cafeteria again, where he has a great program planned, and there'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be introduction to the whole new year of enjoyment, fun, instruction, as well as just a kind of a well-rounded Life Team program for your own enrichment and for your children's enrichment. So encourage them to come. We're starting off again this time, that new year. This week, I have to go to spend many hours on a streaming meeting on for our Executive Council of Priests on this coming Wednesday, and it takes us several hours, but we just try to work with the bishop and to advise him and to respond to his requests to make our Church of Yakima more strong and more vibrant, presence of Jesus Christ in the world. So I have to spend that time on, it'll be on Wednesday, Tuesday we'll have a meeting to lead into that from our own deanery. That's the local church here at Yakima. There's about 13 priests that make up this deanery, and this parishes of Yakima, the diocese, and of course the parishes of our surrounding towns, Moxie and Cowiche and Natchez and Selah. Yeah. So we'll gather here at St. Paul's at the rectory for a luncheon at noon, and then we elect a new representative because Father Ricardo's left us for a while, and hopefully he'll come back to join us. But right now we need a new representative, a new dean. The diocese is divided into deaneries, and we need a new dean for our own area here. We'll do that this coming Tuesday. We are working on our school right now to make we have 4 classrooms set aside, the cafeteria and the gym, and Emma's office is over there too, all usable. The west end of the building is still under temporary construction. We're in the process of hiring a general contractor, but there are people coming in all the time now to look and to put bids out and think what it's going to cost for repainting and putting new ceilings in and floors where there's a need. And so it's a slow process. It drives me crazy, just like it does you, not to see a lot of improvements soon, but it just takes a long time with working with the insurance companies and contractors. We're still working on it, and we're really trying to get things done as soon as we can. Let's see. I just look forward to it, kind of warn you, we'll be gone from the 4th to the 7th of October at our annual convocation down in Kennewick. All the priests gathered with our bishop and the priests of the whole diocese. And so Father Darrell will be here to have daily masses while we're gone. But it is a time to really I'm asking you to pray for your priests, and the ones that make mistakes and the ones that keep trying, but particularly at the convocation, because when one of our priests makes a serious mistake and it comes in the papers, it kind of casts a pall, not only of overall the priests of the diocese, but the whole diocese itself. But hopefully we'll have a very positive experience at the convocation. You probably see this already. You've seen it on. I fell yesterday. I was out running and just tripped over my own feet, and I got kind of a big hematoma here in my arm, and had to have a few stitches in my thumb, just so I wouldn't bleed to death. But I'm okay, and it's just I'm old. And those things happen. I haven't fallen for a long time. It was the first time in the ages, really over a year, well over a year. I'm going back to it, but I'm taking a couple of days off from running right now, just to kind of recuperate. Again, in the future, I'm mentioning that we have the annual Catholic Appeal coming up in October, and the Pledge Sunday will be the first Sunday of November. But that's something to consider, prayerfully discern your response to the needs of our diocese, because we're not members just of a local parish, but we're church for the whole diocese, the whole 7 central counties of Washington State. And they have needs in order to allow and support the bishop in his own fulfilling of ministry. We need always your support too for the diocese as well as our parish community. Again, I remind you, pray for vocations. We're down to about 6 or 7 seminarians now, and particularly from our own diocese. If you know people who are promising and would make good priests or religious, encourage them and let us know, and we'll try to direct that person into a proper world of preparation. But we need your help, the help of all the people of our diocese. It's our responsibility, not only of the vocation director, Father Polito, but it's the responsibility of all the people of the diocese to make sure that we have priests to serve us in the future. So be concerned for it, pray for that intention, and encourage anybody you might know that might be a good priest to inquire and to follow up and answer their vocation, the call of Christ for service in that special way, generously. Religious education classes, did we talk about that yet? No, I guess we didn't.
No.
They resume on the 3rd of October, Monday evening at 6 o'clock in our school, at the east end of the school, the usual place where Emma's office is, the door closest to the church on the main floor. And there's 4 classrooms set aside, so the second year students who are preparing for sacraments come on Monday the 3rd of October, and the first year come on the 10th, Monday the 10th of October at 6 o'clock over the same thing. We try to help everybody. The responsibility for training our kids in the practice of the faith really is responsible, and the parents have the first responsibility. We're just here to help you. But we want your kids to come and have the experience of really formal instruction in the faith. As I mentioned last week, I think it was, we haven't hired a new music director, Michael Kim. He's from Kansas City area. He's Korean. He seems to be very, very well versed and very competent. And we're looking forward to having him come. He's getting ready, he's selling his house now and getting ready to move out here in the very near future. Then you who go to the 11 o'clock Mass will be spared me and my mistakes, and we'll have somebody that's really competent. I don't consider myself an organist. I consider myself an organ player. There's a difference. But Michael is a professional, and we're looking forward to having him. In the meantime, Kathy Kloster is being a great help in arranging week schedules and scheduling cantors and setting up schedules for the music and getting everything together. And Kathy, we really thank you for the tremendous help you're giving to us right now, all the time, but especially now. Pray for Emma Mendoza, our religious education director. She said deaths in her family, a couple of them, people that are very, very sick. She herself has been in the hospital in the past few weeks for a bad back, and it's just very difficult. So keep her in your prayers, and her family too. They're going through a very difficult time, and she's a marvelous, wonderful religious education director, and we hope that everything will smooth out for her and her family. I just heard a few minutes ago that Queen Elizabeth died. I thought she was always a dignified leader of her country, of Great Britain, of England. And she's been reigning monarch for, I think, 50 years.
60 or maybe 60 or 70, I think.
Oh, is it 70 years maybe?
Maybe.
Let's see. Maybe it's 70 years. Yeah.
They said Platinum's anniversary.
Yeah, it is 70 years, yeah.
Okay.
And she's been I think, a great example of what a monarch should be if we ever had one. And we need to pray for her and also pray for our own leaders in our own country. There's so many diverse responsibilities that fall on the leaders of our country and the countries of the world. And of course, we know the mess the world is in with the war in Ukraine and other parts of the world. There's 2 or 3 little wars going on kind of all the time. And we can't forget those poor people who are victims of that violence of war. And also victims who are victims of random shootings in our country and in Canada, up in Saskatchewan. I had to look up Saskatchewan, how you spelled it, but I wasn't too sure.
You should have asked me. I'm from there.
I know, but I didn't know whether. But you've changed. You become United States citizens, I think. But anyways, we need to pray, and even in our own community, we have these drive-by shootings. We know. So keep all these people that are in need in your prayers. Become a more prayerful person, storming heaven with your prayers. Because that's what you're the church. We are the church. You and I are the church. We're not. It's not just the building. It's not just the priests and religious. We, the people of God, are church. I had the privilege of having lunch the other day with Pastor Kirk McFarland from First Priesthood, First Presbyterian Church. Now it's Grace in Christ Church, and he's a marvelous pastor. We have so much in common. The different religious groups, much more in common than we have that divides us. And so we have so much to pray for. Church unity, peace in the world, the cessation of violence. We have so many things to pray for. And individuals that we know in our own parish and our own families that are hurting, become a people of prayer. Pray more often. It doesn't have to be a long time, but just asking God, just letting God know that we're concerned for our fellow human beings who are hurting in the world. And now it's my thank you again for your continued generosity and support of our parish community, prayerfully, financially, in all different ways. You are such a supportive group, and I really appreciate that myself. And now it's my privilege to ask God blessing upon you. May God bless you and keep you and preserve you from all harm, and may He bless each one of you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.